do hang out with the best of the best in the country, and today Jean is with me. She's a lawyer, she's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, sat her bar examinations and she passed, clearly, because she's here. So she will introduce herself. She will tell us more about herself. Welcome, madam.
Thank you so much for having me.
So please introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Jean Wambui. I am an advocate of the High Court, been at it for 5 years now, still going strong.
What? 5 years?
5
How
years.
has it been for you? How has the experience been for you?
Oh, it's been quite good, quite a journey, because in any profession, it's always a learning process. Like a new law comes, you have to familiarize yourself with the new laws, new everything. So it is always something that we are learning.
Constantly learning.
Constantly.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for having us, for allowing to come all the way. And today we want to tackle the issue of data protection. Data protection, I do not know what exactly it is. Maybe you do, maybe we do not. And she will be here to explain to us what exactly it means, what data needs protection, because to some of us data is your data bundle, and to others data is what you encrypt in your computer or in your phone, or data is a part of what makes up a company, or even a media station. We deal with data. News is data. So what is data protection, what needs to be protected, and what it is all about. So we'll ask the elephant question in the room, which is, what is data protection?
So before we even begin to define what data protection is, we start now with the foundational principle of what privacy is. So privacy under the Constitution is ideally under Article 31, where it speaks about certain rights that need to be protected, and among them is your privacy. So you have a right not to have your property illegally searched. You have the right to have information regarding yourself and your family being protected by other individuals. So on that basis, we now come into data protection. So what is it? We have personal identifiable information, which could be your name, your phone number, your photo. All this is what we refer, or rather data that needs to be protected. So it's your phone number. Imagine even your number plate can fall under personal identifiable information, CCTV footage, even your biometric data, some, maybe you've been to buildings where you find they're using their thumbprint to access. So that we all have a unique fingerprint. So that fingerprint is linked to me or to you or to any other individual. So that is the backing of having. That's the backing of data, and the data that actually needs protection and to be governed. So that is why we have the data protection laws, which each company or any company or individual who is processing a certain amount of data, they have to have those safeguards already in place within the organization. So as we speak, I'll be mentioning 3 key terms, which is a data controller. So who is a controller? Controller could be an employer or anyone who is accepting or recording personal identifiable information. So for example, if you are joining an organization, there are some things that they always ask, like your name, your ID number, next of kin details, KRA PIN,
ID number.
Yes, your photo, some of them. So depending on the nature of work that you'll be doing. So employers, ideally by them doing the collection of information, they are data controllers. So we have data processors. Who are data processors? These are now, let's say, your employer needs an HRM system to assist in the recording of like leave, disciplinary matters, yeah. So the employer will be sending that personal information to the third party, who is now the data processor. Yeah. Then there's the data subject. Data subject is now an individual like me or yourself. We've applied for a job at a certain organization, and we are the ones who are giving out the personal identifiable information. So this will be, you'll hear me using these terms as we continue the conversation.
Okay,
yeah.
So when we talk about data protection, let me, even as you've mentioned some of these things, I know of instances, especially when it comes to photos. Once your photos have been used, apparently you can reclaim them back and not have a third party use it. For example, especially the church settings, all right? You're in church, you are worshiping, and your photo was taken of you worshiping, used by the church. Now the church becomes the data controller.
Yes.
Okay. What happens if I see that photo on some other ad on TV about depression?
Yeah.
Someone crying depression.
Yeah.
Sorry, the photo was taken when I was worshiping, I was crying. The data controller was the church, right? But then now there's this third party who saw the photo on social media and then decided to use the photo to push a certain agenda, either commercially or for their own reason. Am I allowed to sue this third party who took the photo from church, whom I allowed them to take my photo?
So before even we get to the church taking your photo, there's something that I actually saw in a church and I was quite impressed. And they mentioned that they had a specific section for seating, whereby if you do not want your photo or your video to be taken or your face to appear in any of their communications, there's a certain section where you have to sit. So it depends on now those safeguards, because now people are becoming more and more aware of their rights, right? So that church said that there's this section you have to sit in. Then now, even before we get to that principle of where church or different organization is using your photo, they have to get your consent. So you find that, let's say an organization is running a marketing campaign and they're using some of their staff in their marketing promotions. So as a marketing manager or even as a legal within that organization, I have to prepare consent forms. I have to prepare consent forms whereby you as a data subject would have to consent, and you'd have to be very specific and accountable as to how you are using my information, right? Even if before you even transfer to a third party my photo, you have to inform me that we are sending person X or person Y this information, and they'll use it maybe for this and this purpose. So I have to be aware of each and every usage of my photo. On top of that, they're called data subject rights. On top of that, I have the right to come to the organization and inform them, either to correct my information or to tell them, take down my photo. I am not comfortable having it out there. So it is upon now that organization or individual or church, whoever, to take down my photos in their social media communications and whichever other promotion that they have utilized my photo. Now, on top of that, as an organization, you also have to make aware, you have to over-communicate so that people are equally aware of their rights. So now it comes to your question of someone has illegally obtained my photo without my permission. There is the Office of the Data Protection Commission, whereby you can lodge a complaint. Yeah, and they will take up that matter and follow up with the organization as to what they need to do, or looking into the situation that made this instance to arise. Yeah.
So when we talk about having the data subject being used by a certain organization, what happens when the third party was not involved, did not involve the second party or the data subject in question?
Definitely you can sue them, and that's why I said you can lodge a complaint with the ODPC. Me as the data subject, because it is my information. I consented to the church using my photo on their poster, but then this third party has gone and lifted my photo and using it in a completely, totally unrelated claim. So I, as a data subject, can lodge first the complaint with the authority who has the mandate to follow up on such claims. Yeah, that is the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. Yes.
For data collectors, journalists being a huge representation of data collectors, when we want to do something like go and record people passing in the streets, and you happen to do that, are we liable to be reported for taking someone who didn't want to be there? Or should they just come and tell us, hey, I don't want to be there, bring it down, or will they just go straight ahead and sue us?
Yes, as a journalist, what I can say, especially when we see news, maybe you're recording in a busy street, right? Perhaps you could now, what's it called, to hash the face, to blur the face, right, of the passers-by, so that the core focus would be on the person representing or speaking, presenting, right? Or if, let's say, you are interviewing a random person, ideally first, they have to be aware of, maybe someone else within the team can ask, by the way, we are doing this interview on TV, would you like to be on the live show? Here, we'll use your information for this purpose. Here is a consent for signing. You should be literally working with those consent forms, because you do not want to expose the company that you're working for to this litigation. So they have to sign a consent. Consent is key. It is safe to protect yourself as an organization or even as an individual. Yes.
What about this? We also have news, or some sorts of news. For example, if there's a demonstration somewhere, or especially during the Maandamano era, we're just coming from, or maybe we're opposing from, I don't know. But during that Maandamano era, when people are on the roads or on the streets, and we have to take that footage of people rioting or people demonstrating. Do we also require to go to the demonstrators and ask them for their consent?
What I've seen happening is that either the blurring of the faces, or maybe some form of notice, so that they are aware that their faces will obviously appear on the television. So what I've seen, for example, in supermarkets, like maybe they are launching supermarkets, so you don't have control over the walk-ins, you don't have control. So maybe even there at the entrance, having like a notice saying that you will be recorded. If you have an issue, here is the email to contact, because you do not have control. Yes, even there was one supermarket where I saw they put emojis on the passers-by. So that shows how progressively these organizations are embracing the law, so as not to find themselves subject to litigation or various other claims.
Let's go to the churches, back to the churches. I have seen, and we have recorded, or we have anchored news where people have sued churches for taking their photos to to the social media, as it's also imperative that we announce also, even in the churches, that this service is being recorded. In case you're not comfortable with that, don't enter.
No, because you also have the freedom of worship. So ideally, if just like that church, I gave an example. They say there's a specific section where we won't record. We'll record on this side, right? So you have the freedom to sit on this area. If you don't want your face to being shown or seen, you can sit on this other area. So that's one. Two is you can inform the individuals that yes, this area is being recorded. If let's say we capture you and you don't want your face to be seen, here is a channel, or here is a number, here is an email whereby you can send your query or whatever it is you need to this email, and the onus is on us now to see how we can safeguard or protect like your image or something of that sort. Yeah.
What happens when you sign or you agree that your photo will be used for a particular purpose, but they end up not using it for the purpose with which you signed it for? For example, if I'm getting into church and they tell me your photo will be used for furtherance of the kingdom, we will use your photo to show people or to market the church, but then you find yourself, and I'm not talking about a third party, but the same institution to whom you gave out your data are using the same data for something totally different. Can you sue them, Ama? You gave it out, you have no jurisdiction.
Remember, among the key principles for data protection, there is now the transparency. So as an organization, you need to be transparent. You can, let's say I'm a known member of the church, and maybe of course you have my photos within your gallery or whatever. You can even reach out to me and say, okay, Jean, we want to use your photo in 1, 2, 3. So how do you feel about this? Like consent, as I mentioned, is key, right? So that you are not caught in the crosshairs of this legal claims. So consent is always key. It is everything. And as a data subject, I equally have the right to refuse. I can say no. I'm not comfortable with my image being used. Actually, just take it down. It's well within my right. Yeah.
What about, is it okay for the socialites or people who are picture perfect people, is it allowed legally? If, for example, you take a photo of me, you see that these people who are, this is my good side, this is my bad side. Like, if I find out that the photo on your website or on your social media handle or social media page, you have my wrong side, can I ask you to take it out because I feel it does not represent me, and ask you maybe to take it out?
It is well within your right to do so, yes. It is, and since it's something that is being publicized to the general public, of course you have a say as to how your image and any other information that is publicized should be used. Yes.
Now, there's data subjects and their rights. When we're talking about data subjects and Imemi, do the people who have my photo or have my data, do they have a right as well? Am I right near data?
Now, on the controller or processors, they have certain safeguards, right? They actually, even before you go to the safeguards, there are certain principles that they must have in place for processing of data. So key among them is, if they are processing data, it has to be done lawfully, and also transparency as to how the data is being processed. So if, let's say, I am collecting information, of course there has to be a legal backing as to why I need certain information. Some of it is captured under law, some of it maybe we are utilizing that information to, let's say, process your pay, for example. So each and every processing activity has to be backed by a certain principle or a certain obligation for a data controller or data processor. Yes.
Now, when we talk about data, when you're the data processor, what are the rights that the data processor has?
It's more or less safeguards that they need to have in place. Like, let's say, let's go to an employer-employee relationship, and in this case, the employer is sending certain information to the processor, for example, that HRMS system that we were talking about earlier. So as a processor, I need to ensure that I have safeguards in place within my organization to protect the data that I am receiving, right? So these are maybe certain encryptions, like let's say if you are hacked today, what will the hackers see? Will they have access to my full names, government names, plus ID number, plus. So can you imagine? And you know, data is something that we cannot live without sharing this data. So all we need is just, do you have the safeguards? Like if today a hacker hacks your system, will they see the full information? My full government names, even where I live, you know, my next of kin details, carry pin, ID number, yes. So you know how now if they have access to that information, they can now start other, no, they can now contact your bank because they have your details. It is everything, yes. So you have to have, let's say, if your system is hacked today, what will the hackers see? Will they see information that is encrypted that they require to decrypt in order to access that information? So these are some of the key assessments that you need to have. Another thing that, especially if you have high processing activities, including biometrics, these are now sensitive data, and this now would apply to hospitals because they even have your medical information. They have your medical history. So they have to have certain safeguards within the organization, which ideally what I'd advise is having a cybersecurity expert coming and auditing your systems, because now there's something that's called safe hacking, where they hack to see your vulnerabilities. Yes. So it's more or less now a defense, like you're protecting that information, you're guarding it. So that ideally is the role of controllers or processors in this case, right?
We have talked about the possibility of a data protector or a data processor of mishandling a data subject, right? Is it possible for a data subject to mishandle or to infringe on a data processor?
So what happens is, remember, let's say a data processor. First of all, let's start with the controller, because the controller is the person who gives now access to the processor to process that information. So first of all, the contract between the processor and the controller needs to have these safeguards already embedded in their contract. If they are transferring, let's say if their servers are based in the US, what mechanisms, even in those, wherever their servers are based, what mechanisms are there, what encryption. So the processor also needs to be aware, same to the controller. And if you are transferring my information as a data subject, I have the right to be informed. So what you'd find is that companies have, it's called a privacy notice or privacy policy in their website, which explains when we collect your ID, your phone number, your whichever information, this is how we process it. So that is among your rights to be informed. Even in your consents that you sign, there has to be a notification. Let's say either you call within organizations, you either have a data protection officer whose role is now to do these audits, right? as to your processing activities, then they would now advise, like, this data handle this way. We'd review the contracts that you have signed, even the sharing of data. There's a data sharing agreement, yeah, and data subjects need to be informed, yeah.
When we have an incident where I, as the data subject, refusing some information, for example, if I want employment and I refuse to give out my ID number, is it okay for them to deny me the job just because I refuse to that information?
You see, you have to have a legal backing as to why you need that information. Yeah, and at the Employment Act, there's some information that you need to have as a matter of law.
Yes.
So that is your legitimate interest in collecting that data. So there's some information that employers can't do without, right? So we can't do without your name, without your ID, without your KRA PIN, without your NSSF and NHIF number. So how can we perform our obligation under law if you refuse to provide that data? Yeah.
Right.
So in essence, unasema don't pay me.
Don't pay.
Don't pay
My ID
me.
is private.
Very
You're not,
private. Yes.
Okay, so it's sadly the end. Do you have any parting shot?
Yeah, parting shot is what I'd advise even clients, depending on the spectrum. You know how you have your apps, right? You're signing up on an app.
Yeah.
You have to even have that background knowledge of how that information is being. No, nowadays it's just clicking agree.
Agree.
Agree. Agree. The terms and conditions.
Where's that kabox?
Yes,
Tick,
tick, agree.
Oh, God.
Yes, so just being aware of some of these rights is very important because you do not know how processing happens.
You don't know what they will
You
do.
don't know what they'll do with your data. So just being very categorical and being aware of some of these rights, like the ODPC has fined organizations. Let's say you're in a club and your photo is taken and they're posted.
Yes.
Some clubs got fines because of doing that.
Huge fines.
Massive fines. So just being, as an organization, being aware of that data, being aware of even those details,
Yes.
and also having those safeguards, be it a club, be it whoever, just know your rights.
Know your law, guys.
Know your law.
Know your law, know your rights, know your... Just know, data collection is something that is happening on a daily, especially on Sunday. On Sunday when you walk in town,
True.
billions of cameras everywhere along the CBD, and you never know. So photographers, camera takers, I don't know what to call it, but let's be very intentional. Let's be on the lookout to not infringe the rights of fellow citizens. Some people just don't like being in front of the cameras. Others, it's because of their criminal records. Others, it's because of their privacy. You never know. Just make sure you don't have somebody who does not want to be on your shot. Especially for us as media stations and content creators, because that is something that is on the rise right now. Content creation ni kawaida. Imekuwa, I don't know, it's a norm. Let's be very careful, very diligent, and let's be on the lookout to understand the law, to know the law. Thank you very much, Jean Wamboi, for your time. Thank you very much, my esteemed viewer, for your time as well. I hope you've been edified. I hope you have learned something as much as I have. Then let's be our brother's keeper. And until next time, my name is Consolata Chibalonza.